Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 of Journey. We are going to start where we left off with, I put another coat of Bondo on this. We're going to sand this down, go around back and show you what I did back there. Let's get the sand in here. All right, that looks pretty good there, nice and smooth. No more dips in the corners here that there were before. Maybe a little bit of fine sanding in that corner. Let's go to the back here. I'll show you what I did here. All right, what I did back here was I put the first coat of Bondo on this edge that was kind of all flaking off. I ran a piece of tape right here, which I'm going to peel it off right now so you can see. What I did was I ran it just above the edge of where the two seams are. By putting this tape here, when you go to put your Bondo down, you don't have it fill in that whole crack in between the two seams of wood. When you fill that crack in between the two seams of wood, anytime you want to go move this cabinet or anything like that, if this wood flexes at all, it's going to end up cracking. It's not going to look good. So at least this way, it's a lot more undetected as far as repairs too. So now I'm going to go ahead and sand this down, sand this top down. Probably going to have to put one more coat on this. I did go around and put a coat on all these nicks just to get those filled in a little bit. So let's sand this down and we'll see what it looks like. Got another spot right here I need to fill in. Move you over to this side. Use a block to get into your corners because the sander will not get into the corners. right, I'm gonna get this blown off. I'll be right back, get all the dust off of this and get some more Bondo mixed up. I'm gonna run another piece of tape along here one more time. So we'll be right back. All right, I'm gonna put one more strip of tape along this seam so we don't get that seam filled up. You can use any kind of masking tape. I recommend peeling it off before you go to sand. If not, you're just gonna tear the paper all up and end up having it stick into the wood and stuff like that. So once again, just go just above that seam. Just a tiny bit. Gotta peel out around here. I don't know if the handles cover these spots or not. They might, I'm not sure. But on both sides, they were kind of torn up above the handles here. Got my Bondo over here. Mix this up real quick. This is part 3 of the restore. This video will show the rest of the body work finished on the cabinet and spraying primer on it. Once I get these top parts of the cabinet done, I can lay it on its side and work on that front corner that's all messed up. I'll show you how I fiberglass that in. I'm trying to keep these videos around an hour long, but it's really hard because there's a lot involved. I could split this up into 2 more videos, I'm not sure yet. I'd like to try to just do it in part 3, but it might have to be part 4 for the priming, taping off and priming of the cabinet. We'll see how that goes. But we're just gonna go ahead and fill in these spots. This should be the last coat on the back here. Got pretty good on the first coat. Just being patient with this stuff, let it dry for a little bit, especially on edges, so it doesn't get torn off. I'll show you afterwards with the camera. The top is nice and smooth. You don't see any of those screws that I put in there yesterday. And it's okay if you get some of the Bondo onto the tape. Not gonna hurt it. Don't worry about trying to get all this stuff off the edges. Let it kind of just sit there. Because if you go try scraping it all off, you'll end up screwing up that edge and having to put another coat. There's a little bit more down here I have to put a coat on. I know most people don't really mess with the back of the cabinets too much. They just kind of leave them as they are. I don't mind. I'm already doing the work. It's really not that much harder to just make the back look nice as well. Now there's one little nick in the top over here on the inside, really small. Just get these real quick. I think that's it. Actually, there's one more spot, which is underneath this tape. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel this tape back. You can see right there, it's a little splintered up. I like to just fill all this stuff in because then you don't have to worry about future damage. Take my knife here and clean this groove back out between the two pieces of wood. Put a line right there. That'll be good. Let that dry. We'll sand that down. All right, back to sanding. Let's pull this tape off one last time. And we can go ahead and get this sanded down. It should be pretty good after this coat. Little piece of tape right there. Get my knife, clean out this corner a little bit. Make it a nice consistent line. Best to do this when the Bondo isn't fully cured. A little bit easier to get out. Now this is a real sharp edge. Should take my sandpaper, just knock it down just a little bit so it's not sharp. Now it's got a little bit of a bevel to it. on these back edges. Just slightly hit them with sandpaper. No T-molding goes back here, so kind of nice to not have a real sharp edge just in case it gets bumped against something. Two little spots right here I'm just going to sand real quick by hand. All right, looks like that's good. Give you guys a close-up of it. You can see that edge now, nice and straight. Earlier we glued this crack in, filled the rest of it in with a little bit of body filler. It's nice and smooth. Once that's painted black along this edge, it'll look brand new. Top obviously gets painted blue again. I do need to remove these old cleats on the side of the cabinet. They're pretty much falling off as we speak. Grab my putty knife real quick. All right, see if we can't pop these off. I'll make some new ones after I primer the cabinet. I did pick up a sheet of black melamine today from Menards, a 4x8 sheet, so we can make a new back door for this cabinet. And I picked up enough for the repairs that we have to make on the tapper cabinet. Tapper cabinet also needs a back door made because somebody made one out of plywood. I did go ahead and order the screen, marquee, and control panel overlay for the tapper from Phoenix Arcade. That should be here probably about a week or so, I'm hoping. So I think once I get this done, I'm gonna go ahead and get that one next. Then probably thinking Wizard of War after that. I think that'll be a good one to do. Don't really know much about that game as far as, you know, all the wiring and stuff like that. I do have a used harness. Hopefully it's all there. I haven't really looked at it much. But I'll do that one, and then I can work on that Gorf, because Gorf and Wizard of War are pretty much almost the same. Wizard of War has 3 speakers versus Gorf has 2, I believe. Those are all off. Now I can make some nicer ones. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off for a minute. I'm gonna get the cabinet laying on its side so that we can work on that spot that needs to be fiberglassed in. All right, I'm back. Here is the bottom corner that's pretty chewed up here, not horrible. What I'm going to do is take a screw here and stick it in this hole. I want to just go below the surface. So it's a little bit below the surface. have these really small trim screws that I like to try to put 1 or 2 in here on an angle. And what that's going to do is help hold the fiberglass resin when I pour it into the corners. And you just got to be really careful because you can split the cabinet worse than it already is. So just try to get it in here. Carefully start it. Nothing crazy. You want to put it in far enough like that, because you're going to have a T-molding that comes around here and it goes around the bottom a little bit. So you don't want to have this screw sticking out too far this way or too far this way, because when you go to make this groove again, you're going to end up having to try to cut through that, and it's just going to ruin your bit. Try to put one more in, maybe this direction here. Two kind of are hitting each other, which is good. That slot should just miss those. I think that's pretty good there. They're nice and sturdy. That's going to help hold the fiberglass resin to this panel. The way that this is broke off is kind of nice because it's kind of in layers. So that does also help hold it together. Let's try to think if I should put one more in here or not. I think I'm going to try to put one more in. Maybe I can just put a little one right here. And that'll kind of tie this side in with this side, so they'll all be tied together. Now, what I did was, this is Lexan. I've used it many a times for many a cabinets. This is not plexiglass, this is actually Lexan. With Lexan, if you have a metal bender, you can actually bend Lexan on a metal brake to get yourself a little 90-degree bend. I like to use this for this front surface here, because then it'll kind of go underneath. This is going underneath. I want to bring it right to the edge there. We will have to drill a couple holes through the cabinet, which you'll never see once the T-molding goes on. So we're going to go right through here. And we'll stick a screw in there. Just do all these screws lightly. No reason to go ramming them in there real hard. So all we're doing is trying to hold this piece of plastic from coming out. I'll put one more down here. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing. Move it over a little bit. Put one more screw right here. And by drilling these couple holes with a T-molding holes, it's not going to hurt anything. I'm not splitting the wood or anything like that. That's why I say just to go real slow, so it doesn't split the wood. Now on the bottom here, this side is pretty much flush with the bottom piece of the cabinet. So what we'll do is we'll just take a flat piece of Lexan. Actually, this is plexiglass. And we'll just stick it right here. So we need to get 2 screws into this as well. There's one. I already have a couple holes that are pre-drilled down here from the last cabinet I used this stuff on. Good thing is usually you can reuse this stuff a bunch of times. Now, we need to seal this up as best as possible, and underneath here, this fiberglass resin is liquid. It's just gonna wanna pour right through there. So I just use some masking tape. It still ends up getting past it, but not too bad, hopefully. Hopefully I can seal it up real good and stop it from getting past it. This is the best way I found to fix little blown out corners like this. The only other way to do it is, if it were a little bit worse, would be to maybe cut the wood on an angle and piece in another piece of wood. But in this case, we definitely don't need to do that. Stick some underneath here. We're gonna have to try to put quite a few pieces under here because I could already see through where it's gonna wanna leak out. Like I said, it's gonna leak past the tape a little bit. We're just trying to prevent a bunch of it from coming out. I don't wanna have to do too many coats. Hoping to just pour it in one coat. Trying to pack this into this crack here. And there's some chips along the bottom all the way down. I might as well just fill those in as well. There's a couple little ones in the back here. Not bad at all. I'll probably just use a little Bondo on these couple back here. But you can see down in here, not horrible, but there are definitely some chipping. So we'll get that all filled in. I wonder if I can maybe move it around here. Try to give you a better visual. There we go. All right, let's mix up a little fiberglass resin. This is just straight fiberglass resin. You can buy it Home Depot, Lowe's. I think parts stores also have it. And then there's a liquid hardener that goes with it. There is a mixing ratio, so many drops of hardener per quart of resin, but we're not gonna do that. I've been using this for a long time. So I'm gonna pour a little bit out here. And I usually harden it a little bit more than it needs to be. You don't wanna go crazy with the hardener, but you also wanna make sure you put enough, because if you don't put enough hardener, this stuff will stay sticky and never set up for you. It'll never cure. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put maybe about 16 dots or so of hardener. You want to mix it up really good. The better you mix it, the better it will cure. If you just mix it for a couple seconds, chances are you're not going to have the hardener mixed in thoroughly with the resin. This stuff does tend to heat up a little bit as it's curing. If you put a ton of this down, a real thick layer of it with a bunch of hardener, I've actually seen this stuff smoke. Don't want to do that. I actually did that once on a boat floor. Put a little too much down and a little too much hardener all in one shot. Made me a little nervous. But I'm gonna keep mixing this for a second. I'm gonna move you guys back over by the cabinet so we can there we go. And basically just gonna pour it in there and hope for the best that a bunch of it doesn't pour out onto the floor. If that does happen, I'll have to put a second coat. This stuff sets up usually in an hour. This will probably be about all I finish up for the night. Tomorrow I'll pick it up where I left off and we'll get this thing bodywork wrapped up and get it primered. But go ahead and use your paint stick and just kind of flow it into the area. And those screws will really hold this together nicely. I'm going to kind of run it down here. Fill in some of these cracks, or chips rather. As you can see before, I put the tape all the way down the side. There's a little bit back there. I'll just hit those with some Bondo. Those aren't really bad enough to worry about the resin. This stuff's pretty hard to sand. It dries pretty hard, so try to smooth it out the best you can. Looks like I put a little too much down. We'll just use an 80 grit sandpaper on a DA sander to flatten this out. I always like to leave the cup of extra stuff, just set it on the floor. Don't go throwing it in your garbage can. Just in case it does get hot on you, you don't need to cause a fire. All right, just gonna let that sit and dry and we'll be back. All right guys, next morning here, I went ahead and let this fiberglass dry overnight where we had filled in these corners here. Let me move the camera down. And what we're gonna do now is let's get this Lexan unscrewed from the cabinet. I do have this masking tape I gotta take off. Some of the fiberglass resin ran on the bottom. I wiped it off last night with a paper towel the best I could. We got pretty much all of it off. But let's get this untaped, unscrewed. We'll see what it looks like. We're gonna have to sand it down and then do a little bit of Bondo over top. And that should finish up this side. And then we just gotta do a little bit of Bondo work on the other side. Then I believe the cabinet will be ready for taping off and priming. Try to ease this off of here. There's some plastic that's on this Lexan that is sticking to the cabinet, but that's not a big deal. That'll sand right off. Just go slowly, don't go ripping it off real fast. This is what it looks like when it comes off. Nice new built corner, really strong. You can push on it, doesn't wiggle, doesn't move. So next what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this sanded down and then we'll put a coat of Bondo on. All right, let's start sanding down this fiberglass resin. This stuff is kind of hard to sand. I'm going to use up the rest of this old piece of paper, then we'll switch it to a new piece. I'm gonna switch to this bigger sander, see if this doesn't take it down a little quicker. That's much better. Cleaning this off here so that we can put a coat of Bondo on. I'll bring you over here to see the corner. I did round this edge a little bit. I believe that's about how it should look. Obviously I don't really have anything to gauge off of. The other side is a little chewed up, but not as bad as this one was. So here we go. Here is the new corner. You could see in the deep down in there, well not really deep, but a little bit down in there, you can see where that screw was that I put in there. And you can see I can really wiggle this, no movement whatsoever. So if this gets bumped when it's getting moved or anything like that, it's not gonna go popping out on you. If I would have filled this with just Bondo, chances are if this hit on something, the whole chunk would have fallen off. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix up a little bit of Bondo, and we're gonna go ahead and fill in over top of this, just kind of feather it out. And if you look right here, there still are some little nicks. They're not bad. They look worse on the camera than they are in person. Some of the fiberglass last night kind of leaked through the tape. As you can see, it kind of ran down the bottom of the cabinet a little bit. I wiped it off with some lacquer thinner last night. I'm gonna sand that bottom of the cabinet just lightly, just to get any dirt and dust off of it, but it's in really good shape. No real swelling, no water damage. I think what happened with these front corners is probably when the operators were moving them around from truck to warehouse or wherever, they probably just dragged those edges and busted them up. So let me get some Bondo mixed up and we'll get this filled in. All right, got some Bondo mixed up here. We're gonna go ahead and spread it over these areas. I am going to turn this into 2 parts. So this part 3 is gonna be just finishing the body work to the cabinet, getting it all sanded down and ready for primer. Part 4, I'm gonna go ahead and put the cabinet in the spray booth, and we'll get it taped off and primered today. After that, I'm gonna let it set for a day or 2 before I sand it and paint it. While it's setting, I think I'm going to bring in the tapper cabinet so I can start doing the body work on that. That does have a couple panels I need to replace. So if you guys want to see how I replace those panels, you'll have to tune in to see that. If you guys are liking these videos, like to see more, have any comments or questions, feel free to ask me. Please, if you can, like and subscribe to my channel. That'll keep me going to wanting to keep making more. I think later on today, it's gonna make a video of me guide coating and block sanding some car parts, getting them ready for paint. I can also show you a video. I can make a video of me painting the parts if you'd like. But we just gotta get this nice and smooth here. Looks like this might be the only coat we need to do on this side on the lower part. I like to spread my filler a little farther than you need to. I put pressure. So as I'm spreading this, I'm putting pressure on this side of the spreader. What that's doing is kind of feathering it out for me. It's giving me less to sand. I don't really like spending hours sanding, so I try to spread this as smooth as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. Making sure all these nicks are filled in on the edges. As you can tell, I didn't really have to put a lot on to get this straightened out the rest of the way. I am gonna have to fix the groove for the T-molding. I don't know if I want to use my router or not on it. Yeah, I probably will. I'll probably just set the router up and use that, show you how to use that real quick. I'm trying to keep these videos within about an hour. It's really hard to. Just a lot of information I'm trying to share with you guys, and it's really hard to do it in under an hour unless I just cut out a lot of stuff. This third video, I am recording it different than the first 2, so hopefully this will be a full screen video when we're done here and not cut off. So we're gonna let this dry and we will come back. All right, I'm back. I'm gonna sand this down. Gonna hit it real quick with this bigger sander just to knock down the big stuff. I'm going to switch to 180 grit sandpaper, a little finer. Once again, I like to put a little bevel on these bottom edges and the back. Seems to keep it from chipping up real easily, especially with this particle board. All right, that's good. That looks good. Nice and straight, flat, smooth. You don't feel any transition between the fiberglass and the wood. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my router set up and we will go over to this other side. Lower you down here. We'll go to this side here and get that groove back in there for the T-molding. And there's a little bit of Bondo I put down here. I'm just going to sand that off camera. It's not a big deal. It was a little rough on that edge, so just going to do the exact same thing I did up here on the front. All right, I have my little trim router here. This is what I normally use. I don't have a full-size router. This is a T-molding slot cutter. I believe this is 30-second size. I tried to look on the writing, but it's kind of worn off, so I'm not positive on that. Tmolding.com sells these bits for the T-molding. You can go there and get them. I'm not sure if Arcade Shop sells them as well. So what I do is I take this router and I adjust the height of it so that it fits in the existing slot. Just try to get it right in the center of where it was. If you're a beginner using a router for the first time, you might want to get yourself a full-size router. This one doesn't have a very big base on it, so it's a little bit harder to control to keep it flat. If you have a bigger router with a bigger base, you have more likelihood of being able to keep it nice, straight, and flat. But we're just getting this to fit in there. It looks to be right about in the center. I'm gonna lock this down, double check. And the best way to run these routers is they recommend going counterclockwise. So we are gonna go this way. And it looks like the original slot went to about there. So we'll go to about the same spot. Another thing, it is good to kind of slow your speed down a little bit. Keeping it on high is a little too much. All right, as you can see, there was a little bit of sparks. I did hit that screw just a tiny bit, but when you look in there, I didn't cut through or anything like that, and I didn't ruin the blade. Maybe dull it a little bit, but it'll be okay. So now we have a new groove cut in here. As you can see, I don't know if you can see this or not, but let me take you out of the... There's the new groove. See how it chips a little bit? That's just what happens with particle board. That's just how particle board is. But we got a nice new groove here. It is the same as that one. You can see how some of this old groove is chipped and stuff. That's from when they took the original T-molding out and then somebody put that black leather T-molding in. It's still nice and stiff. It's not flexing or anything like that. So that's why I said on the first video, we might have to use a little bit of hot glue here and there to just hold that T-molding in. So now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and get this cabinet flipped around to the other side and we'll get the other bottom straightened out. All right, we're on the other side. The other day when I had the cabinet upright, I had put a little Bondo in this corner. Same as the other side. Minor chipping along the bottom, and then this corner on this side is in really good shape. I knock this down real quick and we'll put a coat of Bondo on here and we should be good to go. All right, have some Bondo mixed up here, get this side filled in. If you notice right here on this bottom corner, on the other side, after I had Bondoed it, I took my DA sander and I kind of rounded this edge a little bit. Originally they were just square, and as you can see here, the corner gets chipped. As soon as you start tilting this cabinet back to roll it on the wheels, you end up nicking up that corner. So I'm just gonna round them over just a little bit, then I don't have to worry about that happening. So once again, we're just gonna come in and fill the top first. A little build on that edge there. And like on the other side, you notice most of that Bondo got sanded off after I put it on. But it's always nice to put on a little bit extra like that, a little bit farther up, a little easier to feather out. This side we're going to have to cut the T-molding slot just like we did on the other side. The router is still set up to do it, so it's not a big deal. Kind of giving that a radius. I don't know if my radius is exactly like it's supposed to be, but it's close enough. And I got Bondo on the wheel, so I'm gonna have to clean that off. I'll get that with a paper towel afterwards. Once again, putting pressure on the one side of the Bondo spreader, kind of feather it out. All right, I'm gonna clean off this wheel, let this dry, and I'll be back. All right, this side's dry, I'm ready to sand it. Do the exact same thing I did on the other side. Giving this edge a little bevel to it. Hit it with some 180 grit. Router this corner just like we did on the other side. Once again, counterclockwise. I'm going to check, make sure nothing moved on the router before I go starting to router it. Still in the same spot, we're good. All right, that's done. Pretty much all the body work looks to be done on the cabinet. I'm going to go ahead and end this video here, and then we'll get this posted on YouTube. Like I said, once again, if you guys can subscribe and like, that would be great. Let me know what you think. I'm going to go ahead and get this cabinet stood up, get it all blown off and everything, and then the next video I'm going to show us getting it in the spray booth. We're going to paper off the inside of the cabinet just so we don't get gray primer inside the cabinet, because I don't want it to look like that when it's done. And then I'll show you spraying some primer. I'll show me spraying some primer rather. So, all right, have a good day.